What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA playoffs. Wednesday, June 23rd. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have an NBA showdown between the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks. So let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Drew Holiday from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Drew Holiday has averaged 36.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 32, 49, and 35 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 48, 42, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 38 fantasy points here tonight, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. So I like Drew Holiday here versus the Atlanta Hawks. The other point guard that I like is Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks, and the Milwaukee Bucks have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Trae Young has averaged 43.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. He scored 34, 63, and 58 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 43, 40, and 40 minutes. He's projected at 47.2 fantasy points here tonight, so I like Trae Young here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, who do we have at the shooting guard position? I like Kevin Huerter from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Kevin Huerter has averaged 24.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 42, 42, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 39, 44, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 28 fantasy points here tonight. Now, Kevin Huerter, he's been funny this season. He was doing awful all throughout the playoffs, and then all of a sudden, boom, 42, 42. He just goes off. He's on fire, and he's playing close to 40 or more minutes per game. So I don't know if he was having some injury problems and then he got healthy or what's going on with him. But he is kind of a hit or miss player. But it does look like he's back on track now, and his salary's still pretty reasonable. So he's got some major upside here, and he's in a good matchup. So I like Kevin Huerter here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Chris Middleton from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Chris Middleton has averaged 36.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He scored 56, 69, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 52, 42, and 45 minutes. So he's playing monster minutes. He's projected at 43.1 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Chris Middleton here versus the Atlanta Hawks. The other small forward that I like, if you're looking to save some salary, it's probably one of my favorite value plays on along with Kevin Huerter. I like Danilo Gallinari from the Atlanta Hawks, playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Danilo Gallinari has averaged 22 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 28, 17, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 23, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 25 fantasy points here tonight, so I like Danilo Gallinari here versus the Milwaukee Bucks.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to DraftDashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks. He's averaging 53.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. He scored 63, 52, and 59 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 50, 41, and 41 minutes. He's projected at 61.1 fantasy points here tonight, although all these projections are a little bit high because their numbers got boosted last game, all playing a ton of minutes. So I would say around 56 fantasy points is a more realistic projection here. But I like Giannis Antetokounmpo here versus the Atlanta Hawks. And another power forward that I think he's a pretty good value play as well. He's more of a mid-range play, but I think he's a good play for his price point. I like John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks. John Collins has averaged 31.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 39, 17, and 39 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 41, 37, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 35.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's another player that's a little bit hit or miss, but I think he's a good salary for his upside, so I like John Collins here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Clint Capella from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks. Clint Capella has averaged 40 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 25, 28, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 37, and 37 minutes. So Clint Capella has drastically underperformed his season average. I don't know what's going on with him in these playoffs, but the guy was averaging 40 fantasy points per game on the season. He hasn't reached that number. I don't think he's reached it once, maybe once or twice throughout the playoffs. He does have some monster upside, and his salary is low. He's projected at 32 fantasy points here tonight. So I would say that Clint Capella would be a good play if you're looking for a guy that has 35 to 40 fantasy point upside, and he is cheaper than John Collins, and I think he's got bigger upside than John Collins does. So he's one of my favorite plays on the slate tonight. So I like Clint Capella here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. And another center that I like is Brook Lopez from the Milwaukee Bucks. He's averaged 24.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 45, 22, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 46, 29, and 36 minutes. So you can see all these guys had monster minutes last game, and that's why their fantasy points are all through the roof. But he's projected at 28.5 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Brook Lopez here versus the Atlanta Hawks. And just real quick, you can see on FanDuel, Brook Lopez is $500 more than Clint Capella. And you see Clint Capella was averaging 40 fantasy points per game on the season, and Brook Lopez was averaging 24.5 fantasy points per game on the season. So I just prefer, in a tournament format, I would just prefer to play Clint Capella over Brook Lopez, save some salary, and I think he offers you much more upside if this guy can get going, but his track record through the playoffs has been awful, so that's why his salary has come down so low. I pick him almost every single video because his salary's low and his upside potential is pretty big. He's just hasn't been delivering, so I think, I say this every time, but I think this is the game that Clint Capella comes through here. So I prefer Clint Capella over Brook Lopez, but good luck tonight, guys, and enjoy the game.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to DraftDashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.